Now, the rest of the story. Eugene Orowitz was a javelin man. I mean the best in the high school as a javelin man. A mere 5'4" and 115 pounds, he could still throw that javelin farther than any of the other boys. Baseball, football, Eugene was always the last one picked. Boy, but when it came to the javelin, others competed, but nobody compared. Eugene used to practice with an old bent javelin, and it didn't matter at all. He knew what he could do was more of a gift than something you get from sweat. And you know, he believed something else, that the real secret of his specific athletic success was his hair. One day, scrawny Eugene saw the movie Samson and Delilah. Handsome, powerfully built Victor Mature starred as Samson. There was javelin throwing in that picture, you may recall. Anyway, Eugene saw mighty man Victor Mature with all of that long hair, and he, the boy, decided that he would grow his own. And you know something? The longer Eugene's hair got, the stronger he got. A psychological thing? All right. But by the time Eugene's hair had grown all the way out, and I mean hippie long, his javelin throwing arm was stronger than anybody's. By age 17, he was the United States javelin throwing champion and a recipient of a full sports scholarship at the University of Southern California. But once at USC, the hair Eugene was sure had got him there was universally scorned. This was the pre-60s, you see. The other jocks told him to crew cut it the way the rest of them had. Eugene tried to explain that he needed his hair long to throw long, but they didn't buy it. So one day the weightlifters grabbed him and held him down and shaved half of his head bald. And Eugene was never quite the same after that. Certainly his throwing wasn't. To compensate for his lost power, he worked out furiously until his muscles spasmed and his ligaments tore and his elbow disintegrated into bone chips. But it was no use. The boys who'd cut off his hair had cut out his heart. He would never throw the javelin again. In fact, Eugene dropped out of school shortly afterward, got a job unloading freight cars, but he never outdistanced the Samson complex. And yes, he did grow his hair long again. And he continued to believe that a massive mane was somehow unequivocally linked to his success in whatever endeavor he chose. You never knew Eugene Orowitz, the 115-pound weakling from Collingswood, New Jersey, who became the nation's javelin throwing champion, our nation's champion. The promising USC scholarship recipient whose self-confidence was shorn on the weight room floor, you remember instead as the man that boy became, the long-haired star of Little House on the Prairie and Stairway to Heaven, the late, lovable Michael Landon. Only now you know the rest of the story.
And now, the rest of the story. Now, we all know that Michael Landon's strength was not really caused by his hair, but it gave him the self-confidence he needed to succeed. Michael Landon was born Eugene Maurice Orowitz in Queens, New York on Halloween, October 31st, 1936. His father, Eli Maurice Orowitz, was a publicist, theater manager, and, under the stage name Emo Orowitz, was a popular radio broadcaster who appeared on more than 80 radio stations in the United States and Canada. His mother, Peggy O'Neill, was a dancer and comedian. Eugene had a sister, Evelyn, who was 3 years his senior. In 1941, the family moved from New York to Collingswood, New Jersey. His was one of only 2 Jewish families in Collingswood, which made life difficult for Eugene. Being Jewish, Eugene was treated differently than the other children his age. He attended Collingswood High School, but did not date because, well, as he said later, no Christian father in town would allow his daughter to go out with a Jew. Being a teenager is hard enough without having to be criticized in such a way. In Mr. Harvey's broadcast, he explained that Eugene excelled in javelin competitions. In 1954, Eugene threw the javelin 193 feet 4 inches, which was the longest throw by a high schooler in the United States that year. On May 25, 1954, 17-year-old Eugene was tutoring two 14-year-old boys, Jimmy Muckley and Burton Marles, in javelin throwing near Eugene's home. Now, Jimmy and Burton were lifelong friends and constant companions. The boys and their parents were proud to have Eugene, then the high school javelin champion of New Jersey, as a tutor. Jimmy and Burton took turns throwing the blunt-tipped practice javelin toward each other. Well, when Jimmy threw the javelin, Burton stood to the side of where Jimmy was aiming, and then the roles were reversed. Each boy was careful that he was not in the path of the flying javelin. The back and forth happened several times without incident. But then Burton threw the javelin and Jimmy froze. He saw the javelin coming but failed to move. The blunt-tipped practice javelin struck Jimmy in the head and fractured his skull. Eugene rushed Jimmy to the hospital, where he slowly recovered. 17 days later, Eugene graduated from high school. He earned an athletic scholarship to the University of Southern California. This was where the boys held him down and cut his hair, just as Mr. Harvey explained. This was the moment when one door closed, but another opened. Eugene enrolled at UCLA and took a dramatic arts course. A talent scout for Hal Roach Studios spotted Eugene at a university production and arranged a screen test for him. The test was so successful that he was hired with one stipulation. He needed a name that was, well, more American and less Jewish. He decided on, well, not Michael Landon first, but rather than me telling you the story, I'll let him tell it. Take a look.
When I first came to California, I picked the name Mike Lane. And I went down to the Screen Actors Guild to register. And they were shooting a film at that time called The Harder They Fall. I don't know if any of you remember that. It's about 22, 23 years ago. And Mike Lane was a guy about 6'7", who was starring in that particular film, and I felt no reason to go to him and tell him to change his name. So I grabbed the phone book. I picked Mike Landon out of the phone book.
In 1955, Eugene Orowitz, now under the name Michael Landon, appeared in an episode of Luke and the Tenderfoot called The Boston Kid. This was his earliest screen appearance according to the International Movie Database. Michael appeared on about a dozen different television shows in 1956. The people of Collingswood were proud of Eugene, and his hometown newspaper had to explain that Eugene was billed as Michael Landon. From 1957 until 1959, he acted in so many TV episodes that he occasionally appeared in as many as 3 back-to-back episodes of different shows, sometimes on different channels. Now, I'm not talking about reruns, but first-run episodes. Michael Landon was becoming a household name. Then, in 1959, Michael was cast as Little Joe Cartwright on Bonanza, one of the first TV series to be broadcast in color. Michael was a hit on the show. He received more fan mail than the other stars on Bonanza, including Lorne Greene, Pernell Roberts, and Dan Blocker. His popularity on the show allowed Michael to negotiate with NBC for a bigger part in the production of the show. In 1962, he wrote his first script for Bonanza. In 1968, he directed his first episode of Bonanza. TV Guide referred to the 1972 episode called Forever, which was a 2-hour episode focused on Little Joe's wedding, as one of TV's most memorable specials. Despite the praise of that episode, the ratings declined, and after 14 seasons, Bonanza aired its last episode on January 16, 1973. During the show's long run, only Lorne Greene, Victor Sin Young, and Michael Landon appeared in all 14 seasons. Michael remained friends with several of the Bonanza associates for life. Producer Kent McRae, director William F. Claxton, and composer David Rose remained with him on Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. In 1973, the year after Bonanza was canceled, Michael starred in a TV pilot based on the 1935 book by Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. But Michael was much more than just Charles Ingalls on screen. He was executive producer, writer, and director for the show. It ran from 1974 to 1983, and I tell you, for many of us, when we think of Little House on the Prairie, we have fond memories of little Laura Ingalls running down that hillside. Following Little House, Michael created and worked as executive producer and sometimes director on the American Western drama called Father Murphy. It ran from November 1981 to September 1983. Immediately following that, Michael Landon became an angel who was sent back to Earth to help people in order to earn his wings. That show was, of course, Highway to Heaven. For Michael, the show was more than just entertainment. He brought cancer patients and disabled people to the set as, well, sort of a morale booster for them. He hired a couple of people with disabilities who wrote episodes for the show. Michael's co-star in the show, Victor French, who had also appeared in episodes of Little House on the Prairie, learned that he had advanced lung cancer in April 1989. 54-year-old Victor Edwin French died on June the 15th, 1989, a month and a half before the final episode was broadcast. In April 1991, just 2 years after Victor French learned he had cancer, Michael was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was inoperable and terminal. He blamed the cancer on his long smoking habit. On Monday afternoon, July the 1st, 1991, my mother and I were doing our laundry at a laundromat in Jonesboro, Louisiana, when the soap opera playing on the laundromat's television was interrupted by the news that 54-year-old Eugene Maurice Horowitz, known to the world as Michael Landon, had died. My mother and I were both shocked and saddened by the news. In one interview, Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie, said Michael gave me so much advice. The overall idea that he pounded into me from a little girl was that nothing's more important than home and family. No success, no career, no achievements, no accomplishments. Nothing's more important than loving the people you love and contributing to a community. Though we were working really, really hard, we were not saving the world one episode of television at a time. We were just entertaining people, and there are more important things to do. And have fun, no matter what. And that's just great advice that we could all use in our daily lives. We don't have to try to save the world. We should focus on showing our family and friends just how much we care about them. And always try to have a little fun along the way. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And now you know the rest of the story.